Chapter 4. Villanelle wakes in a warm tangle of limbs. On the far side of the bed, Laura is lying face down, her hair a honey-colored swirl, one suntanned arm trailing across Kim's chest. Where Laura's all dreamy curves, Kim displays a lynx-like elegance, even in sleep. His features are lean and refined, reflecting his Franco-Vietnamese ancestry, and his limbs are the color of ivory, their musculature precisely defined in the morning light. Detaching herself, Villanelle walks to the bathroom, and takes a shower. Still naked, she pads to the tiny galley kitchen, fills the Bialetti coffee maker with Ediar's Sur la Côte d'Azur blend, and switches on the ceramic hob. At the end of the kitchen, a sliding glass door leads to a small terrace, and Villanelle steps outside for a moment. It's September, and Paris is radiant with the dying summer. The horizon is a pale haze, pigeons are cooing on a neighboring rooftop, and the faint murmur of traffic rises from the Rue de Vaugirard, 6 stories below. Laura inherited the single-bedroom apartment 5 months ago and tells her husband, Gilles, a senior functionary at the Treasury, that she goes there to write and to think. If Gilles thinks this out of character, and suspects that the place is put to more active use, he doesn't say so, because he himself has recently taken a mistress. His secretary, to be precise, a plain and unstylish woman with whom he cannot be seen socially, but who, unlike Laura, never questions or criticizes him. Villanelle stands there, gazing out over the city, until she hears the rasp of the percolating coffee. In the bedroom, Laura is stirring, her fingers sleepily reacquainting themselves with the hard contours of Kim's body. He is 23, and a dancer at the Paris Opera Ballet. Laura and Villanelle met him 12 hours earlier at a drinks party given by a fashion designer. It took them just 3 minutes to persuade him to leave with them. Laura's astride Kim now, her hands braced against his muscular thighs, her eyes half closed. Setting the coffee tray down on a bedside table, Villanelle clears the chaise longue of discarded clothes and arranges herself, cat-like, on the soft brocade. She likes watching her friend having sex, but this morning there's an artificial quality to Laura's gasping and sighing and hair tossing. It's a performance, and from his blank expression and the dutiful bucking of his hips, Villanelle can tell that Kim isn't buying it. Catching his eye, Villanelle hitches her knees up, spreads her thighs, and begins, very slowly and deliberately, to finger herself. Laura's oblivious to this performance, but Kim stares intently between her legs. Villanelle returns his gaze, notes his anguished look as he tries to hold himself back, and watches as he shudders to a climax. Seconds later, with a plaintive cry, Laura subsides on top of him. On the chaise longue, Villanelle stretches and licks her finger. Sex, for her, offers only fleeting physical satisfaction. What she finds much more exciting is to look into another person's eyes and to know, like a cobra swaying in front of its hypnotized prey, that she is in absolute control. But that game gets boring, too. People capitulate so easily. "Coffee, anyone?" she inquires. Half an hour later, Kim has left for ballet class at the opera, and Villanelle and Laura are sitting outside on the terrace. Laura's wearing a silk kimono, while Villanelle's in cigarette jeans and a Miu Miu sweater, her hair twisted into a scrappy chignon. Both are barefoot. "So, does Gilles still fuck you?" Villanelle asks. "From time to time," says Laura. She takes a cigarette from the packet beside her and flicks her gold Dunhill lighter. "He probably thinks that if he stops altogether I'll suspect something." They fall silent. Before them is the roofscape of the 6e arrondissement, tranquil in the morning light. It's a luxury to be able to sit like this, chasing the morning away with inconsequential chatter, and both women know it. 6 stories below, people are racing to work, fighting for taxis, and jamming themselves into buses and metro carriages. Laura and Villanelle's financial needs are well taken care of, so they're free to abstain from this daily grind. Free to pick through vintage clothes stores in the Marais, lunch at Yum Cha or Le Cristal, and have their hair done by Tom at Carita. Over London, a leaden sky promises rain. In her office above Goodge Street Underground Station, Eve Polastri wrenches a wad of printing paper from the photocopier and repositions it, but the paper jam light continues to blink. "And sod you, too," she mutters, punching the off button. They fall silent. Before them is the roofscape of the 6e arrondissement, tranquil in the morning light. It's a luxury to be able to sit like this, chasing the morning away with inconsequential chatter, and both women know it. 6 stories below, people are racing to work, fighting for taxis, and jamming themselves into buses and metro carriages. And Lauren Villanelle's financial needs are well taken care of, so they're free to abstain from this daily grind. Free to pick through vintage clothes stores in the Marais, lunch at Yum Cha or Le Cristal, and have their hair done by Tom McCarita. Over London, a leaden sky promises rain. In her office above Goodge Street Underground Station, Eve Polastri wrenches a wad of printing paper from the photocopier and repositions it, but the paper jam light continues to blink. And Sadhu, too, she mutters, punching the off button. Eve's using the 15-year-old copier because the scanner's given up the ghost and is now lying unplugged on the floor, where sooner or later she's going to trip over it. She's put in a request for new office equipment, or at least a budget for repairs, and there have been vague promises from Vauxhall Cross, but given the Byzantine arrangement by which the operation is funded, she's not hopeful. Today, Eve is to be joined by two new colleagues, both male. Richard Edwards has described them as an enterprising couple of blokes, which could mean anything. At a guess, a pair of low flyers with discipline issues who have failed to adjust to the ordered, hierarchical world of the Secret Intelligence Service. Whatever their history, they're unlikely to regard Goodge Street as a promotion. Eve glances at the battered metal desk formerly occupied by her deputy. A scattering of effects, a thermos flask, a Kylie Minogue mug filled with pens, a Disney frozen snow globe, stands as he left them, untouched. Seeing this dusty array, Eve feels a vast weariness. There was a time when her mission was straightforward and its purposes clearly defined. Now, 3 months after Simon's murder, a paralyzing uncertainty bears down on her. The outlines of her task, once so hard-edged, have dissolved into a blur, as indistinct as the view through the grime-streaked office window. She wonders, vaguely, if she should have taken more care with her appearance. She's wearing a zip-up tracksuit top, a pair of baggy supermarket jeans, and trainers. Simon was always on at her to make a bit more of herself, but all that vanity stuff, shopping, makeup, hairdressing, doesn't come naturally to her. When she was working with the Joint Services Analysis Group at Penn's house, a well-meaning colleague took her for an afternoon at an expensive spa. Eve tried to enjoy herself, but she was bored witless. It all seemed so unimportant. One of the things she's always loved about Nico is that none of these things matter to him, either. Yet he makes her feel beautiful, and sometimes, at the most ordinary of moments, when she's getting dressed, perhaps, or climbing out of the bath, she catches him gazing at her with a tenderness that pierces her to the heart. For how much longer, she wonders, will he look at her like that? How unreasonably will she have to behave for him to wake up one morning and decide that he just can't continue? They must be almost at that point already. She's taken to pacing mutely around the flat in the evenings, vodka tonic in hand, like an alcoholic ghost. Later, as often as not, she passes out in front of her laptop. Murdered men stalk her dreams, and she wakes at random hours of the night, her heart pounding with dread. Lance Pope and Billy Primrose arrive at 10 a.m. and exchange unreadable glances as Eve introduces herself. Lance is 40-ish, with the lean, suspicious features of a stoat. Billy, audibly wheezing after the climb up the stairs, looks barely out of his teens, with black-dyed hair, skin like suet, and a deathly back-bedroom pallor. "So this is it," Lance murmurs. Eve nods. "A long way from the comforts of Vauxhall Cross, I'm afraid. I've spent most of my career in the field. I'm not choosy about furniture. Just as well. I've ordered some hardware," says Billy, still wheezing faintly. "External processors, logic and protocol analyzers. Basic stuff. Good luck with that. I filed a requisition order 6 weeks ago. It'll be here this afternoon. I'll need a bit of space. Well, help yourself." She takes off her glasses and rubs her eyes. "How much do you both know about why you're here?" "Bugger all," says Lance. "We were told you'd brief us." She replaces her glasses, and the two men swim back into focus. Billy in gothic black, Lance in a seedy version of sports casual. She finds them both deeply unprepossessing, confirming the impression she gained from their files. At 17, using the online handle $Kiki, a reference to the asthma from which he'd suffered since childhood, Billy was a member of a hacker collective responsible for a series of well-publicized attacks on corporate and government websites. The FBI and Interpol eventually took the group down, and its leaders received prison sentences, but the underage Billy was released on bail on the condition that he live at home, under curfew, with no access to the internet. Within weeks he had been recruited by MI6's security exploitation team. Lance is a career MI6 officer and a veteran of numerous overseas postings. Although an experienced agent runner, commended by the heads of station he has served under, he has not been promoted in several years. The problem is his chronic insolvency, caused by a predilection for online gambling. He's divorced, and lives alone in a one-room rented flat in Croydon. "We're here to hunt down a professional assassin," Eve tells them. "We have no name, no country of origin, no information concerning political affiliation. We know that she is a woman, probably in her mid to late 20s, and that she acts on behalf of an extremely well-resourced organization with a global reach. We know that she's got at least 6 high-profile kills to her name." Rain begins to beat at the office window, and she zips her tracksuit top up to her chin. "There are 2 main reasons we need to catch this woman, apart from the fact that she's a serial murderer who needs to be stopped. Which isn't the concern of the service," says Lance, almost to himself. "Which wouldn't normally be our concern, but in this case, very much is. I'm assuming you both know who I mean by Victor Kedrin?" Billy nods. "Fascist nutjob, Russian, taken out in London last year." He scratches his groin absent-mindedly. "Weren't Moscow behind that? The SVR? No, that's what everyone assumed. In fact, Kedrin and his bodyguards were shot dead by our target. It was a brutally efficient job, and she carried it out alone." "You're sure about that?" asks Lance. "Absolutely. And for what it's worth, we have a CCTV image of her." Eve hands each man a printout of a blurry figure in a parka, with the hood up. "The image has been captured from behind. She could be anyone." "Best we've got?" asks Lance. Eve nods, and hands them each another printout. "But she may resemble this woman. Lucy Drake." Billy gives a low whistle. "Pretty fit, then. Lucy Drake's a model. Our killer used her as a double, to check into Kedrin's hotel and to approach him in a lecture hall. But the likeness may only be superficial." "So could she have been freelancing for Moscow?" asks Billy. "The shooter, I mean, not the model. Unlikely, given that the SVR have an entire directorate trained in assassination. And why would they have him killed in London when they could do it any time they wanted to at home? Make a splash?" Billy shrugs. "Show that no one's beyond their reach? Possible, but our information is that the Kremlin were quite happy to tolerate Victor and his far-right associates. They made the official regime look almost moderate. And they didn't hesitate to use his death against us. They've demanded a full investigation and made it clear, at diplomatic level, that they expect the killer caught. That demand has filtered down via Richard Edwards to me. To us." Lance purses his lips. "So who was responsible for Kedrin's protection when he was in London?" Eve meets his gaze. "Officially, me. I was the liaison officer between MI5 and the Metropolitan Police." Lance lets her answer hang in the air. Above the patter of the rain, Eve can hear the faint wheeze of Billy's breathing. "You said there's a second reason we want this woman. She killed Simon Mortimer, the officer you're replacing. And yes, I know what the official service report says, because I helped draft it. What actually happened is that she cut his throat, to send a message to me." "Shit," murmurs Billy. Reaching into the pocket of his combat pants, he finds an inhaler, and takes 2 deep puffs. "She cut his throat," says Lance flatly. "To send you a message?" "Yes. You heard me right. So you might want to think quite carefully before agreeing to join this team." Lance looks at her for a moment. "Where exactly do you see us going with all this?" "We have a lead. The name of an individual who might be on the payroll of the organization that runs our target. It's a long shot, but it's all we've got. So we follow the money, and we follow the man, and maybe, just maybe, we get to our killer. Any chance of borrowing some A4 surveillance people from Thames House?" "None whatsoever. This is a closed-circle operation, and no whisper of it leaves this room. Nor will you make any further contact, social or otherwise, with any security services personnel, on either side of the river. If anyone checks your files, you're both on official secondment to Customs and Excise. And I repeat, this could be dangerous. All the indications are that our target is not only highly trained and well-resourced, but a narcissistic sociopath who kills for pleasure." "I'm assuming the money's shit," Lance says. "You both stay at present pay grades, yes?" The 2 men look at each other. Then, very slowly, Billy nods, Lance shrugs his shoulders, and for the first time since their arrival Eve senses a flicker of common purpose. So, Billy says. This lead you mentioned. As Villanelle runs, she feels her body relax into the familiar rhythm. Her back and thighs are still sore from the previous afternoon's jiu-jitsu session at the Club d'Arts Martiaux in Montparnasse, but by the time that she's completed the circuit of the lake and the Outwheel racecourse, the stiffness has vanished. On her way home, she picks up a takeaway sushi order from Comme des Poissons and a copy of the financial paper Les Echos. Back at the flat she showers, runs a comb through her dark blonde hair and pulls on jeans, a t-shirt and a leather jacket. Sitting on her balcony, she eats the sushi with her fingers and works her way through Les Echos. By the time she's finished the last mouthful of tuna, she's scanned every page and processed the information she needs. Looking out over the city, she checks her phone. But there's no text from Constantine. No new target. Turning on the Grundig shortwave radio, as she is required to do at least twice a day between actions, Villanelle keys in a search code. As usual, it takes a moment or two to find the number station, which tends to skip from frequency to frequency. Today it's broadcasting at 6,840 kHz. There's a faint crackle, followed by the first 15 notes of a Russian folk song, whose name Villanelle once knew but has long forgotten. The music's electronically generated, with a thin, tinny sound that's at once sad and faintly sinister. The notes repeat for 2 minutes, and then a woman's voice, distant but precise, begins to recite a 5-digit Russian number group. This is the call-up code, identifying the individual for whom the message is intended, and the voice has repeated the numbers 3 times, Da, Paya, Deviat, Sem, Deviat. 2, 5, 9, 7, 9, before Villanelle realizes that the call-up code is her own. The shock momentarily takes her breath away. A number station call-out entails immediate action. She's been checking in with the station for more than 2 years without ever hearing her number. The call-up repeats for 4 minutes, then 6 electronic chimes announce the message. Again, this consists of 5-digit groups, each voiced twice. Then the chimes again, the opening notes of the folk song, and the hiss of empty air. It takes Villanelle 10 minutes to decrypt the message using the one-time pad that she keeps, along with the 6-hour P226 automatic and 10,000 in high-denomination notes, in a concealed safe. It reads: 17 North Star. Relocking the safe, Villanelle grabs a baseball cap and sunglasses and leaves the flat. Location 17 is the heliport at Issy-les-Moulineaux. Taking the ring road as fast as the traffic allows, whipping from lane to lane in the silver-gray roadster, she makes it in 15 minutes flat. At the entry gate to the car park, 2 men in high-visibility vests are waiting. They look vaguely official, and as Villanelle slows to a halt, one of them holds out a placard printed with the words North Star. When Villanelle nods, he beckons her out of the Audi and takes her car keys, then the second man leads her up an unmarked side road to a rectangle of tarmac enclosed by warehouses. At its central point, an Airbus Hummingbird helicopter is waiting, rotors idly turning. Villanelle climbs into the seat beside the pilot, straps herself in, and places a noise-reducing communications headset over her baseball cap. She is carrying no luggage, money, passport, or identifying documents. Okay? Asks the pilot, his eyes invisible behind mirrored sunglasses. Villanelle gives him a thumbs up, and the Hummingbird lifts off, hovers for a moment above the heliport, and swings eastwards. Below them, briefly, is the serpentine glitter of the Seine, and the crawl of traffic on the périphérique. And then the city falls away, and there's just the thrum of the engine. Only now does Villanelle have time to wonder why she's been called out via the number station. And why there's been no word from Constantine. It's late afternoon by the time they touch down at Annecy-Mont-Blanc airfield in southeastern France, where a lone figure is waiting on the tarmac. Something about her severely cropped hair and over-tight suit tells Villanelle that the woman is Russian, and this is confirmed when she speaks, directing Villanelle towards a dusty Peugeot parked 50 meters away. The woman drives with brisk efficiency, making a fast half-circuit of the airfield before pulling up with a screech of brakes in a hangar beside a Learjet bearing the North Star insignia. Inside, she orders, slamming the car door, and Villanelle climbs the steps into the Learjet's climate-controlled interior and straps herself into a seat upholstered in Arctic blue leather. Following her, the woman retracts the steps and seals the exit door. The engines start immediately. There's a flare of late-afternoon sunshine at the window as the jet exits the hangar, and then, with a muted roar, they're airborne. So where are we going? Villanelle inquires, releasing her seatbelt buckle. The woman meets her gaze. She's got broad, high cheekboned features and eyes the color of slate. Something about her is familiar. East, she says, snapping open an overnight bag at her feet. I've got your documents. A passport, Ukrainian, in the name of Angelika Pyatachenko. A worn leather wallet containing a driving license, credit cards, and a reception pass identifying her as an employee of the North Star Corporation. Crumpled receipts. A wad of ruble notes. And clothes. Please change now. A leather-look jacket, limp Angora sweater, and short skirt. Scuffed ankle boots. Underwear, much washed. Cheap tights, new, from a Kiev department store. Conscious that she's being scrutinized, Villanelle takes off her cap and sunglasses and begins to undress, laying her clothes on the blue leather seat. When she removes her bra, the other woman gasps. Shit. It really is you. Oksana Vorontsova. I'm sorry? I wasn't sure to begin with, but... Villanelle stares at her blankly. Konstantin promised her that the cutout was total. That nothing like this could ever happen. What are you talking about? You don't remember me? Lara? From Ekaterinburg? Fuck, it can't be. But it is. That girl from the military academy. She's cut her hair off, and looks older, but it's her. With a supreme effort of will, Villanelle keeps her face expressionless. Who do you think I am? Oksana, I know who you are. You look different, but it's you. I thought I recognized that little scar on your mouth, and I knew for sure when I saw that mole on your breast. Don't you remember me? Villanelle considers the situation. Denial isn't going to work. Lara, she says. Lara Farmanyans. They met, just a few years earlier, at the university games, when they were competing in the pistol shooting. It had become clear that Farmanyans, representing the Kazan Military Academy, was going to be very hard to beat, so the night before the final Oksana slipped into her rival's room, and without speaking a word, stripped naked and climbed into bed with her. It didn't take the young cadet long to recover from her surprise. She was, as Oksana had guessed, badly in need of sex, and returned her kisses with the desperation of a starved animal. Later that night, dopey from hours of fervent cunnilingus, she whispered to Oksana that she loved her. That was the moment when Oksana knew that she had won. Early the next morning she crept back to her own room, and when she saw Lara at breakfast in the canteen looked straight through her. Lara tried to approach her several times that morning, and each time Oksana blanked her. When they lined up at the target range, Lara's broad features registered hurt and bafflement. She tried to compose herself for the competition, but her aim wavered and the best she could manage was a bronze medal. Oksana, shooting straight and true, took gold, and by the time she climbed onto the team coach to return to Perm, Lara Farmanyans had been deleted from her thoughts. And now, by some malign coincidence, here she is again. Perhaps it isn't so strange that she should be working for Konstantin. She's a superb shot, and probably far too smart and ambitious to waste her career in the military. I read in the paper that you killed some mafia people, Lara says. And later, one of the instructors at the academy told me that you hanged yourself in prison. I'm glad that part wasn't true. Conscious that she needs to keep Lara on side, Villanelle softens her gaze. I'm sorry I treated you the way I did at Ekaterinburg. You did what you had to do to win. And although it probably meant nothing to you, I've never forgotten that night. Really? Really and truly. So how long is this flight? Villanelle asks. Perhaps another 2 hours. And will we be interrupted? The pilot has instructions not to leave the cabin. In that case. She reaches out and runs a finger softly down Lara's cheek. The light is fading when the Learjet touches down at a small private airfield outside Skirbanka in South Ukraine. A cold wind scours the runway, where a BMW high-security vehicle is waiting. Lara drives fast, leaving the airfield by a side gate, where a uniformed guard waves them through. Their destination, she tells Villanelle, is Odessa. For an hour they proceed smoothly through the darkening landscape, but as they approach the city, they run into traffic. Ahead of them, illuminated by the lights of the city, the clouds are a sulphurous yellow. I won't say anything about you, says Lara. Villanelle inclines her head against the window. The first spatters of rain streak the armor-plated glass. It won't go well for you if you do. Oksana Vorontsova is dead. A pity. I admired her. You need to forget her. I'll speak to Konstantin, Villanelle decides. He can deal with Lara. preferably with a 9mm round to the back of that neatly cropped head. On her return from China, with the help of an investigator borrowed from the City of London's Economic Crime Department, Eve attempted to chase down the lead Jin Chang had given her, to identify who had made the bank transfer of £17 million, and who had been the beneficiary. The investigation failed to reveal the source of the funds, but led them via an intricate web of shell companies to the payee, a low-profile venture capitalist named Tony Kent. Detailed investigation of Kent and his affairs revealed little, but one fact caught Eve's interest, that Kent was a member of an exclusive fly fishing syndicate that owned half a mile of the River Itchen in Hampshire. Information about the syndicate was not easy to come by, but Richard Edwards was able, after a few discreet inquiries, to furnish Eve with a membership list. This was not long, indeed, it contained only 6 names. Those of Tony Kent, 2 hedge fund managers, a partner in a high-profile commodity trading firm, a senior cardiothoracic surgeon, and Dennis Cradle. Eve knew exactly who Dennis Cradle was. He was the director of D4 branch at MI5, responsible for counterespionage against Russia and China. Billy is crouched at the steel desk that used to be Simon's, hacking into Dennis Cradle's email account. The new computer hardware, now connected and running, gives off a faint hum. Lance is sitting on a plastic chair in front of the window, staring at the traffic on Tottenham Court Road. His contribution to the office decor has been a clothes rail, hung with coats and jackets that look like a job lot from a charity shop. In the teeth of all her principles, Eve has given him permission to smoke, as the pungent tang of his roll-ups masks other, worse odors. "Did you have curry last night, Billy?" she asks, looking up from her laptop screen. "Yeah, prawn madras." He shifts his buttocks in his chair. "How do you know?" "Call it an inspired guess." "How are you getting on with that password?" "Nearly there, I think." His fingers dance over the keyboard as he stares at his screen. "Oh. You silly, silly man. You in?" asks Lance. "All the way." "Dennis Cradle, you're my bitch." "So what have we got?" Eve asks, a tiny flame of excitement flaring inside her. "Cloud server data. Everything on his home computer, basically. Doesn't sound as if it's very secure." Billy shrugs. He probably thinks that because it's domestic stuff, he doesn't need heavy-duty authentication. Or perhaps he doesn't want to give the impression of having anything to hide. Perhaps this is what we're supposed to see. Cradle shares an account with his wife, Penny, a corporate lawyer. Their emails are stored in orderly folders with names like accounts, cars, health, insurance, and schools. The inbox holds fewer than 100 messages, which Billy copies and sends to Eve. A preliminary examination reveals little of interest. "This is like a lifestyle advertisement," says Eve, scrolling through the Cradle's picture files. Almost all of the images are of family activity holidays. Skiing in Megève, tennis camp in Malaga, sailing on the Algarve. Cradle himself is a tanned, bullish figure of about 50, who clearly enjoys being photographed in sports kit. His wife, prettyish and well-groomed, is perhaps 5 years younger. Their children, Daniel and Bella, stare at the camera with the sulky entitlement of privately schooled teenagers. "Twats," says Billy. "Have a look at their London place," says Eve. The street view image shows a red brick Georgian house, set back from the road. A pillared porch is half obscured by a spreading magnolia. A burglar alarm is visible beside a ground floor window. "Where is it?" asks Lance. "Muswell Hill. They've been there 6 years. Cost them 1.3 mil. Today, it's got to be worth 2, at least." Surely Cradle's not pretending to have paid for all this on his service salary? No. The wife's the big earner. Even so, they'll have trouble explaining away 17 fat ones. Eve shrugs. "I doubt they'll have 2. Assuming that Tony Kent is acting as some sort of financial intermediary for the organization we're targeting, I'd guess that money's parked well out of sight of the revenue. So how do we know it's going to Cradle? We don't, for certain. But Jin Chang wouldn't have directed me to Kent if he didn't know I'd make the connection with Cradle. I'd asked specific questions about the possibility that members of the UK intelligence services were receiving large-scale payments from any unknown source." This was Jin's answer. I think it was as far as he thought he could go. "So," says Lance, "are we going to turn Cradle's place over?" Eve polishes her glasses. "I'd like to, but it'll be well secured. He's a senior MI5 officer. The shit would really fly if we were caught." I'm assuming we're not going the search warrant route? No. We'd never get one, even if we said why we needed one. Which we can't. Just asking. Lance leans in towards the screen. That's a dummy alarm over the first floor window, so they've probably got a conventional system inside. Infrared, pressure pads. You think it's doable? Eve asks him. He flicks his lighter beneath his half-smoked roll-up. Everything's doable. It's a question of opportunity. Can you get the bloke's diary up, Billy? I've got pennies. He doesn't seem to have one. I need a guaranteed 2-hour window. What can they offer us? How about this? Says Billy. Dinner with A&L, Mazeppa 8.00. Eve frowns. But that's tonight. I can do tonight. Lance shrugs. I'll cancel my date with Gigi Hadid. Too soon. We need to do a proper recce. We can't just go charging in there. What else have they got coming up? Don't know about Dennis, says Billy. But Penny's not got anything else booked this week. Fuck. Eve searches for Mazeppa on her phone. It's a Michelin-starred restaurant in Dover Street, Mayfair. She looks uncertainly at Lance. I could check the house out this afternoon, he offers. Park up and sit tight. Soon as they leave this evening, in we go. Eve nods. It's far from ideal. And she has no idea about Lance's skills as a housebreaker. But Richard wouldn't have sent her a dud operative. And she needs results. Okay, she says. Lara has dropped Villanelle off at a cafe in Odessa's Bird Market, in the Moldovanka district. It's a dingy place, with yellowish lighting, faded travel posters on the walls, and a blackboard advertising the day's special. Perhaps half of the tables are occupied by single men, mostly, and a couple of women who might be prostitutes, fueling themselves for the night's work with solyanka soup and dumplings. From time to time the men glance at Villanelle, but on meeting her flatly hostile gaze, look away again. She's been waiting here for 20 minutes now, sipping a cup of tea and skim reading a copy of Savadnya, a Russian-language tabloid, in one of the booths at the side of the room. At intervals she raises her eyes to the cafe's rain-blurred glass frontage, and the dimly lit streets beyond. She's hungry, but doesn't order anything in case she has to leave. A lean figure slips into the booth opposite her, a man she's met before, the man who talked to her in Hyde Park the previous winter and who spooked her. And now here he is again. There are the patchy beginnings of a beard, and a battered leather jacket has replaced the tailored coat, but the frozen darkness of the eyes is the same. When they first met he spoke English, but now he is calling to the elderly waitress in fluent, Moscow-accented Russian. You're hungry? He asks, running a hand through rain-damp hair. She shrugs. Borscht and pirashki for two, he orders, and sits back. So, says Villanelle, her face expressionless. So we meet again. He gives her the ghost of a smile. I apologize for failing to identify myself in London. The time wasn't right. And now it is? He looks at her, assessingly. We were impressed by your handling of the Kedron action. And now we are faced with a situation requiring your assistance. I see. You don't see, but you will. My name is Anton, and I'm a colleague of the man you know as Constantine. Go on. Constantine has been abducted. Taken hostage by a mafia gang based here in Odessa. She stares at him, speechless. And yes, we're quite sure. The gang is called Zolody Bratstvo, or the Golden Brotherhood, and it's headed by a man named Rinat Yevchuk. According to our information, Constantine is being held in a well-secured house in Fontanka, a half-hour away from here. The house is owned by Yevchuk. The gang's intention, apparently, is to demand a ransom. Her expression remains neutral, but alarm is jolting through her with nauseating force. Is this a setup? An attempt to panic her into revealing who and what she is? You have to trust me, he says. If I was a hostile, you'd be dead already. Still she says nothing. Even if he's telling the truth, and Constantine has been abducted, she's still lethally compromised. If they, whoever they are, can get to Constantine, with his serpentine wariness, then they can get to her. Tell me, she says eventually. Okay. We're certain that the kidnappers know nothing about Constantine's connection to us, or even that we exist. As far as they're concerned, he's just a visiting businessman, whose company will pay up in the usual way. What concerns us is that Yevchuk's organization has, for some time, been under the control of the SVR, the Russian Secret Intelligence Service. And the SVR have wind of us, as MI6 do. They don't know who or what we are, but they know we exist. So the question is, have they organized this abduction with a view to interrogating Konstantin about us? We're not sure. We've got our own people in the SVR, naturally, but it'll take time to find out what's really going on. And we don't have time. He pauses as bowls, spoons and a steaming casserole of borscht are placed on their table, followed moments later by a plate of pierogi, small buns filled with minced meat. As the waitress shuffles away, Anton ladles out the beetroot soup, splashing the front of Villanelle's cheap sweater with spots of dark purple. Konstantin's tough, he continues. But even he can't beat an SVR interrogation. Villanelle nods, dabbing absently at her sweater with a paper napkin. So what do you propose? We get him out. We? Yes. I've assembled a team of our best people. She meets his gaze. I don't work with other people. You do now. I'll be the one who decides that. He leans in towards her. Listen, we don't have time for this prima donna shit. You'll do what you're told. And there's a good chance we can all walk away from this. She sits there, motionless. I've never taken part in a hostage rescue. Just listen, okay? You have a very specific role to play. She listens. And knows that she has no choice. That all that she is, all that she has become, hangs on the success of this mission. I'll do it on one condition. That I'm not recognizable. I don't want anyone else on the team to see my face. Or find out anything about me. Don't worry, the others feel the same. You'll wear full face masks throughout, and communication will be limited to an operational minimum. Afterwards, when the mission's completed, you'll be returned separately to where you came from. She nods. There's so much about him that she distrusts, and from which she instinctively recoils. But she can't, at that moment, find fault with his plan. So when do we go in? He surveys the cafe, and takes a mouthful of soup. The rain beats harder against the glass frontage. Tonight. Nico doesn't raise his voice, but Eve can hear that he's upset. 2 of his colleagues from the school are expected for dinner. Chilean Pinot Noir has been bought, and a small but expensive shoulder of lamb is waiting in an unproofed dish, stuck with cloves of garlic. The subtext to the evening is that Eve will make herself look nice, and wear the Street Laurent scent he bought her, and her prettiest earrings, and when the guests have gone they will make slightly drunken love, and things will, one way and another, be okay again. I can't believe that it, whatever it is, really has to happen tonight, he says. I mean, Jesus, Eve. Seriously. You've known about Spig and Claudia coming over for weeks. I'm sorry, she says, conscious of Billy listening to every word. I just can't do tonight. Nor can I discuss this on an open line. You'll just have to apologize for me. So what am I going to say? That you're working late? I thought all that finished when you... Nico, please. Tell them whatever you like. You know the situation. No, I don't, actually, Eve. I really don't. I have a life, in case you haven't noticed, and I'm asking you, just this once, to do something for me. So make an excuse, do whatever you have to, but be there this evening. If you're not... Nico, no, listen to me. If you're not, then we need to think very seriously about whether, Nico, it's an emergency. There's a threat to life, and I've been ordered to stay. Silence, except for the rise and fall of his breathing. I'm sorry, I have to go. As she breaks the connection, Eve catches Billy's eye, and he looks away. She stands there for a moment, dizzy with shame. This is not the first time that she's avoided the truth with Nico, but it's the first time that she's straight out lied to him. And for what? Billy and Lance could handle this just fine without her. In fact, they probably prefer to, but something deep inside her, something savage and atavistic, wants to run with the pack. Is it worth it? Turning her life into this furtive twilight, and testing the love of a good man to destruction? Is she onto something with Dennis Cradle, or just forging imaginary links to deceive herself she's making progress? If they find nothing on Cradle, she'll take time off. Make things right with Nico, if it's not too late. All the longer-serving officers at Thames House said the same thing, you had to have a life outside. If you didn't want to end up alone, you had to tear yourself away from the sleepless intoxication of secret work. All it offered was an unending series of false horizons. And no closure, ever. Thinking of Nico at home without her, laying the table, Setting out the wine glasses, carefully placing the lamb in the oven, makes her want to weep. The temptation to ring him, to say that the situation's resolved and that she's coming straight home, is overwhelming. But she doesn't. Have you got a girlfriend, Billy? Not as such. Chat with this girl on Sea of Souls. What Sea of Souls? Online role-player game. So what's she called? Her username's Lady Fang? Ever met her? Nah. Was thinking about pushing for a date, but she'd probably turn out to be really old, or a bloke, or something. That's a bit sad, isn't it? Billy shrugs. To be honest, I haven't got time for a girlfriend right now. There's a brief silence, broken by the buzz of his phone. It's Lance. He's parked up, with eyes on the house. No sign of any occupants. They won't be back from work yet. And my guess is that they'll both go straight to the restaurant. He'll be coming from Tem's house. Her firm's based out at Canary Wharf. But we can't count on it. Our clock starts at 8, when they meet the others at Mazeppa. I'll ring my mum. Tell her not to wait up. The forward operating base is a disused farmhouse 2 miles northwest of Mintonka. The assault team is gathered in a rectangular outbuilding housing a rusting Zaz hatchback and an assortment of mud-caked agricultural implements. Temporary spotlights illuminate 2 long trestle tables bearing maps, architectural plans, and a laptop computer. Metal boxes containing weaponry, ammunition, and equipment are stacked on the earth floor. It's 10 p.m., local time. Beyond the farmyard wall, silhouetted against the darkening sky, Villanelle can see the rotors of a Little Bird military helicopter. In addition to Anton, the team numbers 5. 4 assaulters, of whom Villanelle is one, and a sniper. All 5 are wearing black Nomex coveralls, body armor, and close-fitting balaclava masks. Villanelle has no idea of the identity of the others, but Anton is conducting the final briefing in English. The building in which Constantine is being held, they learn, stands in grounds of half a dozen acres. Photographs show an ostentatious 3-story palazzo with pillars, balustrades, and a steeply pitched tile roof. A chain-link fence surrounds the estate. Entry is by means of a guarded electronic gate. To Villanelle, the place looks like a fortified wedding cake. The assaulters can expect a fight. According to intelligence gained by surveillance, there's a permanent armed security detail of 6 men attached to the house, of whom up to 3, at any one time, are patrolling the exterior. Given Yevchuk's reputation, and the probability that most are ex-military, they're likely to mount a strong resistance. Anton's plan is simple: a surgical strike of such savagery and intensity as to leave the hostage-takers incapable of coordinated response. As the assault team clears the house, the sniper will seek targets of opportunity. Speed will be of the essence. Villanelle looks around her at the other masked figures. The Nomex suits and body armor give them all the same bulky profile, but the sniper has the body mass of a woman. They will be known to each other only by their call signs. The assaulters are Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta. The sniper is Echo. With the tactical briefing completed, the assaulters move to the weaponry boxes. After some thought, Villanelle arms herself with a Chris Vector submachine gun, a Glock 21 handgun, several magazines loaded with .45 ACP rounds, and a Gerber combat knife. Then from one of the trestle tables she takes a fiber optic scope and viewer, and the helmet carry bag marked with her call sign, Charlie. Slipping the scope into a thigh pocket, she takes the helmet outside into the darkened farmyard to check the intercom and night vision goggles. Around her there are brief illuminations as the other 3 assaulters test weapon-mounted torches and laser sights. Lifting off the ballistic helmet, she watches them. There's a tall guy, Delta, with dark-skinned hands, who's shouldering a heavy combat shotgun. Bravo is a wiry figure of medium height, wholly anonymous, and Alpha is bullish and compact. Both are carrying short-barreled Heckler and Koch submachine guns and multiple bandoliers of ammunition. All 3 are, without question, male, and she's aware of them checking her out in return, eyes expressionless behind their face masks. Half a dozen paces away the sniper, armed with a Loba SVL rifle and night scope, is measuring crosswind vectors with a velocity meter.
That's it for today. Thank you for watching. If you want to know more about us, find our profile links from the description below. If you have any suggestions, do send us a message. See you all in the next video. Take care.